Well, I was gonna switch back to NES games this week, but what the heck. We've had so much fun revisiting Atari over the past few weeks, and I've received so many requests for various other Atari games from you, I figured why not just throw out a bunch of Atari games you picked this week. There's no rhyme or reason to this list other than it's all games that viewers like you have suggested in the comments section over the past few weeks. It's the Atari 2600 games you loved on this edition of Friday Night Arcade. Here's one I actually never played when I was a kid, and I wish I had. This one comes in from Robbie, Raimundo, Nova Sky, and several others. Moon Patrol, developed initially for the arcades by H.E.R.O and released in 1982. I'd heard of it, but we just never owned it. The story here is that you're a police officer assigned to a moon base, and your job is to drive this moon buggy across the surface, taking out any UFOs you see along the way. You drive this moon buggy and it looks just like the Mako from Mass Effect, right? Maybe not. Boy, I missed that game. But I do have to say the wheel animations on this thing are pretty good. So the moon buggy is constantly driving forward, but you can speed up or slow down by pressing forward or backward on the joystick, and you jump by pressing up. Your moon buggy shoots forward and upward, and you'll have to take out as many UFOs as you can while jumping over craters on the ground and shooting rocks that look like Hershey's Kisses. The UFOs shoot back, and sometimes their shots actually make more craters as they hit the ground. At any given time, there's a lot of stuff flying around on the screen, which is impressive given the hardware, and is that parallax scrolling with the mountain ranges against the starry background? That's awesome! The game's levels are divided into checkpoints, and there's a radar at the bottom of the screen which tracks your progress. Also, this game has music, but you have to switch the left difficulty switch in order to engage it. Definitely check this one out if you've never played it before.
Activision presents Megamania, a new video game for your Atari video computer system. 1, 2, 3, 4, Mega! Megamania! Megamania! It's gonna drive you insane. You got to sit to survive and you got to run to stay alive.
Several of you have written in about Megamania, and I'll confess this is another one I had completely missed out on in my youth. This game was developed in 1982 by, you guessed it, Activision. I swear, there was a time when they were actually a good company. It starts off simple enough, looks an awful lot like Space Invaders or just about any other random space shooter. Your ship looks eerily similar to the USS Enterprise, except those aren't UFOs, they're cheeseburgers? There's a certain irony to this. The thousands of cheeseburgers I've devoured in my life have finally come back for revenge. The other difference is that when the burgers reach the edge of the screen, they cross the plane and come out on the other side. This game throws all sorts of crap at you. Burgers, cookies, bugs, radial tires. There's also an energy bar constantly ticking down, so you'll have to act fast. The object is to stay alive as long as you can and score as many points as possible. This was another Activision game that had a patch system. If you scored enough points, you could take a picture of the screen and send it in to receive your very own Megamaniac patch. Did any of you ever win one of these? Things get really crazy after the hamburger stage. The cookies rapidly swing back and forth in sweeping patterns and actually come all the way down to the bottom of the screen. If you don't make enough of a path for yourself, you'll eventually just get clobbered and die. This is rough, and it took me a while to get the hang of it. In the baseline version of the game, your missiles are actually guided and move along with you as you move your ship. This totally threw me off because I was used to the Space Invaders way, where your missiles aren't tied to your movement. However, in the baseline game, you also have a rapid fire, which I didn't even realize, and I was totally playing the game wrong for the first 5 minutes before I figured it out. If you use the game select switch on the console, you can toggle the non-guided missile option where your shots just go straight up, but then you lose the rapid fire mode. So pick your poison carefully. Either way, this is a tough game, but it's a lot of fun.
You wanna play Berzerk? You're on. Hey, where you going? The video arcade! You can't play Berzerk at home. Yeah, you can. Atari!
It's Berzerk inside an electric maze, where robots shoot with electric rays.
Take that, turkey!
So look out, don't get trapped, or you might get zapped. Berzerk is here from Atari.
Can you beat that?
And only for systems from Atari.
Have you played Atari today?
Several of you reminded me about Berzerk, which was a game I hadn't thought about in forever. This was a game my cousin had as a kid, so I remember playing it a bit at his house, but it wasn't one I personally owned until much later. I love the box art on this, and it reminds me of Logan's Run or some other futuristic 70s sci-fi show. Really, the box art on all of these Atari games was pretty great, even if the gameplay required you to use a little more imagination. The story here is that you were part of a team of explorers checking out a far-off planet in the future. You land to find out it's not habitable at all. This floating disembodied genie head named Evil Otto went nuts and reprogrammed a bunch of robots to murder anything that moves. Now you're stranded here and have to make your way through all these maze-like passages with evil robots hunting you down. The robots shoot at you, and if that's not enough, the walls are also electrified. The sound effects are just awesome. From the laser blasts to the explosions, it's all top-notch Atari goodness as you wander around these mazes blasting robots and just trying to stay alive. There's a genuine sense of foreboding dread as you sneak around, and there's a little bit of strategy to this too. You can shoot horizontally or vertically, but you can also shoot diagonally, which is a skill you'll need to master if you want to stay alive in the later stages, since the enemies do get more challenging as you go. The good news is that the electrified walls also kill the robots too, so sometimes you're better off just getting them riled up and then running away. They're kinda stupid. But you should be aware that this game makes use of several different game modes by toggling the game select switch on your console. The manual comes with this special chart to let you know the differences between each mode. If you use the first mode, Evil Otto doesn't show up at all. If you're just starting out to the game, this is definitely a good way to practice, but I recommend picking Invincible Evil Otto with at least mode 3, and I feel like this is actually the proper way to play this game. In this mode, Evil Otto's creepy, smiling, disembodied head comes bobbing onto the screen after a minute or two, and it adds to the panic as you're trying to take out all the robots and escape the room. If he catches you, he smashes you to bits and he just keeps going. Stop it, man, I'm dead already! You can't linger too long and have to think quickly on your feet as soon as you enter a new area. And Evil Otto really hates it when you kill the last robot. He speeds up much faster, and I recommend making sure you're close to an exit before you land the final kill shot in any room. I never got very far in this game, but I still can't help but to keep playing it. Berzerk is super addictive, and I want to thank all of you for reminding me about it. Helicopter Emergency Rescue Operation. That's H.E.R.O for short. Lots of you wrote in about this one, and I definitely should have gotten to it sooner. It's another fantastic Activision title that was developed and released in 1984. Instead of trying to kill everything in sight like a normal Atari 2600 game, you're actually trying to rescue miners trapped in the mines by shooting everything in sight. Actually, it's quite a bit more complex than that. You have an inspector gadget-like helicopter mounted to your back that you can use to float through the caves as you make your way down to the miners. Once you get to the bottom of the stage, run up to the miner to rescue them, and then you'll move on to the next stage. Learning to control your copter is crucial. If you typically use a Sega controller when you play Atari, you may want to switch back to the OG Atari joystick, as I feel like controlling your helicopter is a little more suited to the stick instead of a D-pad. You have two methods of attack, a simple short-range laser that you can fire with the big red button on your controller, and if you press down on the joystick, you'll drop a stick of dynamite. You start each stage with 6 of these, and they can be used to take out thin walls as you make your way through the caves. The first few levels are easy enough, but after that the game really ramps up the difficulty with enemies placed in the most devious possible locations, walls made of magma, and the mines have lights placed in various locations where if you touch them, they break and the screen goes totally dark. You can use dynamite to light up a room for a few seconds, but be careful with these. As soon as you drop one, you'll have to run away or it will kill you too. There are 20 levels to make your way through, and memorization is pretty much essential if you want to go far in this one. This was another Activision patch game. This time the cutoff was 75,000 points. Did you score enough points to get your official H.E.R.O patch? This is one of the best games on Atari, especially given the hardware limitations at the time. I definitely recommend picking it up if you get the chance. Sometimes you just have to take a moment and appreciate the time developers spent writing out these stories. Atari games were usually ridiculously simple, but they still took the time to conjure up some crazy backstory as to why you're doing whatever you're doing in the game. Check out the manual for Phoenix. In ancient times, legend says there was a bird of great beauty, about the size of an eagle. It had brilliant scarlet and gold feathers, a melodious song, and was one of the only of its kind in the entire world. This fabulous creature lived in Arabia and had a lifespan of over 500 years. At the end of its life, the Phoenix built a nest of frankincense, myrrh, and other aromatic spices. After setting fire to the nest by rapidly beating its wings, the beautiful bird settled down to die amidst the flames. From the ashes of that fire miraculously arose a young, revitalized phoenix. This new bird then took the remains of its parent to the Temple of the Sun at Heliopolis in Egypt and sacrificed them on the high altar. The long life of the phoenix and the dramatic rebirth of its own ashes has made this legendary bird a symbol of immortality and spiritual rebirth in many cultures. The Egyptians saw the myth as a symbol of the life cycle of the sun, which dies every day at sunset and is reborn every morning at dawn. Most others interpret the legend as a general symbol of the regeneration of life after death. However, something awful has happened to tarnish the long-standing image of the phoenix. Due to the effects of radioactive fallout on its nest, the phoenix has unfortunately mutated into a bird of prey. Now, several birds arise from the ashes, but these are not like the beautiful, friendly bird of old. These birds are mean. Their cries are shrill. They have developed a tough, metallic-like skin that makes them almost indestructible, and they have turned their backs on the human race to offer their services to alien beings determined to drain away Earth's energy resources. Your mission: eliminate these seemingly immortal warhawks, destroy the alien spaceship, and safeguard our planet from ravaging energy thieves. And that's the story of Phoenix. It's actually pretty cool that they were able to weave in some Egyptian mythology into the backstory. Developed for the arcades in 1980 and ported to the Atari 2600 in 1982, at a glance this looks like your average Space Invaders game, but that goes immediately out the window when the bird starts swooping down at you. They swoop up and down haphazardly so that you're constantly on the defensive. The enemies are well animated and highly detailed. Everything looks and plays smoothly. You'll fight through 4 bird stages, with the last 2 having very large phoenix birds to deal with. The sprites are huge and just look great. The birds even flap their wings and you have to shoot them in the middle to kill them. If you hit their wings, the wings just fall off, but they keep attacking you, and eventually their wings will grow back. This looks tough, but the good news is, if you push down on the joystick, you get a temporary force field, and that's going to be super handy, because after you get through the first 4 waves of birds, you have to deal with this giant flying saucer-looking boss. This thing throws all sorts of firepower at you, especially near the center, and it has a couple of layers of shields. The goal is to kill the pilot in the middle of the ship, so you'll want to clear out a path up the middle through the orange layer of shields. However, the blue layer of shields rotates around the ship sort of like in H.E.R.'s Revenge, so your best bet is to try to move your ship off to the side first, then take out as much of the blue shields as you can. Then move back to the center, raise your shields, fire away, and hope for the best. This game is very well done and super addictive. My only minor complaint about it would be the sound effects. While the explosions and laser blasts are fantastic, the constant shrieking sounds that the birds make might make your dog have a seizure. Well, what did you think? What were some of your other favorite Atari 2600 games? If you didn't see your favorite game mentioned here, check out this special playlist with all of my other Atari episodes. Odds are you'll find it in there somewhere. As always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.